Like and subscribe right now, or this spider will crawl in your face while you're sleeping. Top hide-and-seek stories. Growing up, we used to fear a lot of things as kids. One of these things that we feared the most was the dark. Oh, and let's not forget listening to those spooky hide-and-seek stories over a campfire. Perhaps these stories were told to make us afraid of hiding in some dark spot so that we don't hurt ourselves while playing. Who knows? Nevertheless, let's relive our past. Today we'll be taking a look at some of the spookiest hide-and-seek stories that we grew up listening to. You won't believe which hide-and-seek story will send a shiver down your spine. Number 13. The Big Toe. A woman lived in a large house all alone. One day, while she was working in her garden, she found a large hairy toe under a flower bed, brought it inside and kept it in a glass jar. That night, when she was getting ready to sleep, she heard the wind howling through the windows and a hoarse voice asking, "Where's my toe?" The entire house was shaking when she heard the voice asking the same question. To finish, ask the question once again in a low, eerie voice, and suddenly jump up and point at your audience and say, "You've got it!" Now that's a completely insane premise, isn't it? Number 12. The Cursed Doll. A young girl was extremely fond of dolls, and had a huge collection of a variety of dolls at home. Once, while she was browsing at a toy store, she found the most beautiful doll ever, and was keen to add it to her collection. When she asked the store owner, she was told that the doll was cursed, but the girl insisted, and the owner reluctantly sold it to her. When she reached her home, she got into the elevator and the doors closed behind her. The lift did not move, and the girl began wondering if this was because of the cursed doll. Suddenly the doll moved, turned her jet black eyes toward her, and opened her mouth to say, "Push the floor button, you silly fool." Number 11. Hide and Seek. This story is about two brothers who were playing hide and seek in their home while their parents were visiting their friends nearby. As the older boy turned towards the wall and began counting, he heard his brother scampering around searching for a place to hide. He searched everywhere but couldn't locate his brother. When he heard a scraping sound from the cupboard, he called out to his younger brother, but there was no response, only an eerie silence. He opened the cupboard slowly and bent down to peer closer, when a white, icy, cold hand pulled him back. He then heard his younger brother calling out to him from behind, and frightened, the boy tried to break free of the grip of the icy cold hand. Both brothers then rushed out of the room, out of the house, screaming. What if the hand had pulled the boy inside the cupboard? Number 10. The Cemetery Gates. One dark night, a policeman was given the duty to guard a section that consisted of an old cemetery. As he went on his rounds and approached the cemetery, he noticed that the gates were open, and he also heard rustling noises in the dark. He suddenly saw something white rushing towards him. Panicking, he drew his gun and fired a few shots at it. The next day, the policeman was found dead outside the cemetery with his gun in one hand, and his other hand clutched to his heart. The poor fellow had suffered a massive heart attack, and an old newspaper with bullet holes in it lay fluttering nearby. Number 9. The LEMP Mansion. The LEMP Mansion in St. Louis, which is known to be one of the most haunted places in America due to a tragic history. The 33-room home was built in the 1860s by William LEMP, a successful brewery owner who ended up taking his own life in 1904 after the youngest of his 4 sons, Frederick, passed away. A few years later, his wife also died of cancer in the house. Then, in 1922, William LEMP Jr. shot himself in the same room where William Sr. took his own life. As if that weren't enough tragedy for one place, in 1949, Charles LEMP, William's 3rd son, shot his dog in the basement of the house and then took his own life in his room. That same year, the house was also sold and transformed into a boarding house, where reports of hauntings began. According to Destination America, witnesses have experienced burning sensations and slamming doors. Today, the LEMP Mansion is a restaurant and inn that also holds events. On Sunday night, the inn hosts a murder mystery dinner. Number 8. The Clown. This story is about a family that moved into a huge house with a large number of rooms. A few days later, the 2 little boys of the couple began complaining about a clown coming into their room at night, but the father did not take it seriously. When a young girl came to babysit the kids while the parents were out, she went to the basement to watch TV after the kids went to sleep. She became uncomfortable because of the clown statue near the door and called the parents to ask if she could watch TV in the hall. The father told her to leave the house immediately and wait with the neighbors. The girl came later to know that the family never had a clown statue in their home. Number 7. The Maid. A widowed man and his little son moved into their new home in a faraway town. Their large, spacious house was known to be haunted, but the man did not believe it when the locals told him that. While the kid was exploring the house, he reached the kitchen and saw the maid working there. She told him that there could be ghosts in the house and he had to be careful. The young child then went to his father's study and asked him if the house had ghosts in it. The father asked, "Who had been telling you all this?" The child replied, "Our maid." The father immediately asked him to pack their bags. When the son asked why, the father replied, "We don't have a maid, son." Number 6. The 13th Floor. As the legend goes, there is a haunted home in the city of Pennsylvania. Many years ago, invitations were sent out to people asking them to attend a Halloween party there, and Jack and Mary were amongst the invitees. The home consisted of a maze of identical passages and staircases, all leading to the 13th floor. Most people never made it to the 13th floor, scared by people dressed up as ghosts and ghouls, but Jack and Mary made it all the way to the 13th floor despite all of this. But we do not know what they found on this floor, as they were never seen after that fateful party. They just creepily vanished. And that's why you shouldn't go to every Tom, Dick, and Harry's party. Number 5. Who's in the bedroom? One night when Susan returned home and went to the bedroom she shared with her sister, without switching on the light, Susan asked her sister if she was awake. Her sister replied, "Stop the noise and go to bed." Susan wanted to take a bath, so waited outside the bathroom, which was occupied. Susan thought it was her father who was inside, but her mom said that he was asleep. Suddenly, her sister walked out of the bathroom. Shocked, Susan rushed back to her room, switched on the light, and found her sister's bed empty. Who had answered her then? Number 4. Sister Terror. Two sisters were spending the summer at their grandparents' house. When the sun was shining, they had plenty of sun, swimming in the lake out front, exploring the woods out back, and playing all sorts of games in the gardens. However, one week toward the end of their stay, it did nothing but rain. The girls had played board games, read books, made things with their craft supplies, and now they were bored. The grandparents' house was large, and the girls thought it would be an excellent place for a game of hide and seek. The younger sister wanted to be the first to hide. She ran off to find a hiding place while her sister covered her eyes and began to count to 50. The older sister heard her siblings' footsteps running up the stairs and along the hallway to the back of the house. After reaching 50, she opened her eyes and went in search for her sister. The girl went into every room. She turned under the beds and the closets, behind the curtains and behind the doors, but her sister was nowhere to be found. Finally, she reached the only room their grandparents had told them never to enter. She reached out and grasped the doorknob, turning it slowly and pushing the door open. Much to her surprise, the room was almost empty. The only item was an old, tall, carved wooden cupboard, covered in cobwebs, but the door was slightly open. The girl ran over laughing and swung the door open, expecting to find her sister, but the cupboard was empty. She leaned in, and as she did, a cold, icy hand reached out from the back of the dark cupboard and grabbed her wrist. She let out a scream and tried to escape, but the hand started to pull her into the cupboard. The girl's sister heard her screams and ran to find out what was happening. She entered the room and looked on in horror as her sister began to disappear into the cupboard. Luckily, the little sister was quick thinking. She ran toward the cupboard and grabbed her sister's legs. After a brief tug of war, she managed to pull her sister out of the cupboard, and the two girls ran from the room, slamming the door behind them. Number 3. Closest friend. There was a little girl who lived in a town with her parents. She always told her parents about her imaginary friend named Kelly, and that she lived in her closet. She also said that Kelly sat in the chair and watched her while she was asleep. One night, while the family was watching a horror movie on the television, the girl remarked, "That looks like Kelly." When her parents asked her about Kelly, she replied, "You know Kelly, the dead girl who lives in my closet." And now we've come to the best pick of the day. Doesn't she look creepily camouflaged on the wall like this? I mean, even it's a hide and seek game, this is taking it too far. She looks like a scarecrow. Number 2. Fear the Dead. A man was standing on a lonely highway on a dark, rainy night, waiting to hitch a ride back home. After a long time, he saw a car approaching him very slowly and silently, suddenly stopping before him. Desperate to go home, the man jumped into the car only to realize that there was no one in the car, not even the driver. As the car approached a bend, a hand appeared out of nowhere and steered the car over the bend safely. This scared the man, and he jumped off the car and ran all the way to the nearest coffee shop. As he entered the shop, a couple of guys shouted to him, "Hey, there's an idiot who jumped into a car while we were pushing it over the hill." Number 1. Cemetery Grasslands. A young boy was challenged by his brother and his friends to visit the town cemetery on Halloween night and place garlands on each of the gravestones there. Not wanting to be picked on by his friends for being a coward, the boy walked into the graveyard at the stroke of midnight and began placing garlands, shaking with fear. He finished all of them and said to himself, "There, I'm done." Suddenly, a cold, bony hand tapped him and said, "How about one for me?" With that being said, we've come to the end of this video. So, which one of these hide-and-seek stories spooked you the most? Let us know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and click on that notification bell to get more mind-blowing content.